This seminar was originally planned to be a face-to-face event, but due to the COVID crisis, we have to postpone first, and now we have the pleasure to be with you online. But I'm sure that it will be also a very good success for this seminar. So I think the subject is really important for today, but also this seminar is the closure also of this EIP work program, the first EIP work program. And so I would like to give you a little bit what awards on achievement over the past 7 years. So to come with a certain number of figures, since 2014, regular calls in the CAP Rural Development Program has given rise to over 2,000 operational groups, and more will see the light until the closure of the programs. On the research side, around 200 Horizon 2020 multi-actor projects were financed and are feeding the EU repository of knowledge ready for practice. And last but not least, the European level networking activities mobilize more than 6,400 experts in 120 networking events to exchange about innovative farming practices, needs for further action, research opportunities, and fostering capacity building. So it's really, it has been a pleasure to follow over the past year the progress of EIP network, which has become one of the most successful and efficient EIP initiative. And I must say, I'm very proud of this success. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank all the people who have worked for this success. It's of course inside the commission, my teams, but our contractor, you are most of all there today, and all the participants. Without all the participants of this network, it was impossible to have this success. So now let me move to the topic of our seminar. Healthy soils are, of course, the foundation of agriculture and the basis for the production of safe and nutritious food. Soil is a key component for many ecosystem services, including regulation of nutrients and water cycles. And it can serve as a large carbon sink and provide shelter for a very rich biodiversity. Although a key resource nowadays, more or less 60 to 70% of soils in the EU are unhealthy, threatened by land degradation, pollution, or the effect of climate change. So we are very happy to observe an increasing interest in soil by society, researchers, farmers, media, and other stakeholders. And of course, the EU policies and programs also reflect this recognition of soils as the vital resource for our lives. And as you know, at the beginning of the new Commission, the Commission adopted the European Green Deal, which is a set of policy initiatives with an ambitious objective of a climate neutral, sustainable, and resilient Europe. And they advocate for healthy soils to meet its goal on food security, climate, and biodiversity. So based on this Green Deal, the biodiversity and the farm to fork strategies set ambitious targets for the reduction of the use of pesticides, fertilizers, for decreasing nutrient losses, and for the increase of agricultural land under organic farming. And the Commission has just recently adopted an action plan to meet these targets of 25% of land, organic land in 2030. But none of these targets can be reached without acting on soils. So on the research side, the flagship initiative will certainly be the Horizon Europe mission on soil health, with its objective that by 2030, at least 75% of all soil in each member state are either healthy or show a significant improvement. So this mission is under preparation. You will have the possibility today to listen more because we have the vice chair of the mission board with us. The mission represents really a novel approach to reach innovation, for research innovation, and they will work really in tandem with the other policies and in particular with the CAP. Inside the CAP, you have the EIP-AGRI, and that will help to test, demonstrate, and deploy solutions with real impact on the ground. It will be a really powerful tool to encourage change in practices in agriculture, in forestry, and within the society as a whole, because the intention is not to touch only agriculture, soil, or forestry, but also all the type of soils, including urban soil. So for Horizon Europe, the Commission will also pursue large-scale research innovation with a partnership on agroecology and living labs, and that will develop with the member state and will help to boosting the adoption of soil-friendly practices. On the side of the future CAP, we are still on the negotiation between the co-legislator. 3 out of the 9 objectives will target soils, and the green architecture of the new CAP will enhance and improve the environmental and climate action. Of course, the new CAP will also enhance the activity of the EIP-AGRI, which already now contributes substantially to the protection of essential natural resources on which farming depends. And we will, of course, base this new EIP-AGRI, or the new stage of EIP, based on our experience. And I think it's always possible to improve what is already a success. Indeed, more than half of the 2,000 operational groups I just mentioned that have been established are working on topics linked to soil management and improvement of soil health. And this, together with the various focus group and the networking events like the seminar, contribute to boosting soil innovation, research implementation on the ground by those who are the most directly involved, of course, I mentioned the farmers. To be up to the future challenges, a systemic approach needs to be ensured that knowledge circulates widely, is channeled to those who need it and effectively use it. And support and promotion of training, advice, innovation services, and dedicated innovation networking are equally important, and that will be supported by EIP-AGRI to build an effective agricultural knowledge innovation system, very well known under the acronym ACIS. So that is from one side, but we have other EU and initiative targeting soil, complementing this action I've just mentioned. And this initiative will be presented to you during this seminar. That will give you a complete picture of what we intend to do for soils. So healthy soils are crucially important for our future, but I'm convinced that by joining forces, we can reverse the negative trend and to set a path towards the restoration of soil health all over Europe. We need to be ambitious, but we need, of course, to be also realistic. So today and tomorrow, we will have the opportunity and the privilege to listen to your experience and opinion. We'll hear you about the opportunities and success factors, but also about the challenges and constraints you face. And I'm sure that your contribution inside your recommendation from the ground will provide a very valuable input to our activities and initiatives. So thank you very much for joining us for the seminar. I wish you a fruitful discussion, and I'm very much looking forward for our exchanges. Thank you, and the floor is yours, Niels, please.
Thank you very much, Nathalie. So as you all heard, we are in a very, very important topic for all of us practitioners, as well as for all the support system that is behind us and the whole knowledge system in Europe. Before we go further, I would like to remind that today, your participants, some of the sessions will be recorded. Only the plenary sessions will be recorded to be able to document them. So please have this in mind. For today, the objectives, and for tomorrow as well, is first of all to measure the importance of soil health throughout Europe, and to address practical soil management challenges and solutions for enhancing soil health. We have a quite tight program. You will be in a very dense program. I think you will feel sometimes have to do some effort to follow, but I think it's a very worthy opportunity to build up knowledge and gain practice from other practitioners and contributors in this system. So today, as you see on the screen, we're going to have a first part to creating a common understanding on the importance of soil health. And we're going to have a second part, which will be dedicated specifically on knowledge building on different aspects on soil health aspects, soil productivity and nutrient cycling, carbon sequestration in soil, soil and water interface. We will work a lot in breakout session. We try to have this program very interactive, so the time won't, despite being online, won't be too long for you. Tomorrow, we're gonna look back on what we learned today, and we're gonna go deeper to understand better the soil functions. And we will use also a big part of tomorrow to strengthen our network and to give opportunities to build up new connections and new collaboration possibilities throughout the European soil network. Short view to the tools we offer you. Some tricks, maybe those who arrived early or participated yesterday already know those, but some very basic tips to use our virtual platform and the Zoom. So we ask you kindly to keep the microphone mute and be visible during the whole session. We also are using the virtual platform where you have all the support for this session. You have the place for the rooms. We are here now in the plenary room where we are having all the plenary discussions. You can see below some breakout sessions. We kindly ask you only use them when we invite you to use them because of to avoid any difficulties. If any time you have difficulties or you don't find your way, come back to the plenary room. You will always find somebody to help you out. During the panel session, the discussions, you will be able to put questions. We would like you to use on the right hand of the virtual platform, the chat situation. We disable the chat of the Zoom tool, so we have only all the discussion at the same place. There will be somebody taking up your questions, and we can hand them in to the speakers as long as you when the Q&A sessions will happen. So far, I think we mentioned the most important. You can see some other things on the left hand. You can find all the contact of the speakers. You can find the contact of the EIP-AGRI Service Point team. You can find the program. You can find the breakout list where you have to go to, and you can find all the different tools you need. If you want to communicate with some participants, you click on the participants, click some words, something you want to find, and the participant will appear, and you can click on and send him a message personally if you like to get into contact with him. please use and abuse of this tool. This is one of our main goal of this seminar, is getting you to get in contact with each other and to build up a new knowledge. I think we're through. Thank you very much, Ina, for supporting me in this tour. We are now going to look at who is around today. Maybe before we go into the buzzing session, I would like to invite all participants to open their cameras so we can have an idea of the crowd that is here today. I think this is quite impressive to have 124 participants at one time, engaged and committed to support soil health questions throughout Europe. So if all of you could shortly show their face so we can have an idea how many people from different countries are here. Maybe you can say a short hello so we can see that you're actually participating with us. And if we go through and see all the many people that are here today. Great, thank you to be here. We would like to give you a short opportunity to meet some of those many experts throughout Europe engaged in soil health questions. This is going to happen through a short buzzing round. This is a tool that we are going to use several times. You will be using the very efficient tool of Zoom, assigned in small groups of a few persons, and you will have a few minutes to meet somebody. So I would suggest you take this few minutes to introduce yourself, where you're from, and give very shortly what is your motivation to be here during these 2 days. So if Zeus, if you would like to send out the people, you will have to accept, the participants will have to accept to go out in breakout sessions, and you will be there for some minutes to get to know each other and to talk about your motivations. Remind to open your camera and your microphone so you can get into contact and get some connections. Well, I hope you had some interesting meetings and you met some new persons and some different perspectives. I enjoyed to see some persons from Bulgaria, from Spain, from Germany. It's fantastic to have you all here in all this diversity. We now should go on further in our program. We are going to have a first input this morning. We are going to have an input by Professor Pandi Zdruli from University of Bari, who is going to talk to us about soil supports life. During this presentation, you will have the possibility to put your questions in the chat. So maybe shortly show you again where it is in the application. So if you go in the virtual platform, on the right side of the Zoom screen, you can see the chat, and we kindly ask you to put your questions in this chat. There will be a chat facilitator that takes them up, so we can afterwards put the questions to Pandi, who will give us his first input about soil health questions. So I think we can welcome Professor Pandi Zdruli. Would you like to open your microphone? Hello, good morning,
Hello.
Pandi.
My microphone
Nice having
is open. I can share my
screen.
presentation.
Yeah. Your floor is yours. If you would like to give us your input, we'll be happy to know all your knowledge about this topic.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Nils. I will be rather brief to make some introduction on soils that support life and why should we keep them healthy. By the way, I am not with the University of Bari, just a little correction, but I am with the SIAM, which is an international Center for Mediterranean Agronomic Studies, and I am working for the Mediterranean Agronomic Institute of Bari in Italy. For people like me that teach also pedology and soil genesis and soil formation, we always tell our students that soil is at the center of the ecosystems, because all what happens into the biosphere, which include humans, the strong impact that we have on soil, hydrosphere, lithosphere, and atmosphere, that all are reflected into the what are these properties that the soil will have. So it's rather important to understand that we are part of the overall ecosystem, and these are interrelated factors that affect each other, and all those are reflected at the end in the soil itself. And using more or less this type of schematic design, I thought that it was quite interesting also to see that where is the crucial role that the soil itself has, both at the EU conventions, for example. We have the Food and Agriculture Organization of the UN, and we know that soils produce 95% of the food that we eat. And the healthier the soils are, the healthier the food will be. The CBP, or the Biodiversity Convention, pays particular attention as well. And by the way, we have a global soil biodiversity initiative. They are organizing right now webinars, and people are welcome to join them. And there is a lot of research also ongoing, but the issue is that we still know very little about the great wealth of the of soil biodiversity. We rarely know about 1% of all the microorganisms that are there. So quite a lot of space for doing also research and linking that type of biodiversity with soil functions. If you go to climate change, that useless to mention that soils themselves contain more carbon than the atmosphere and the vegetation combined, and are the second largest pool of carbon after the oceans. That's why soils, for sure, could be a sink, but unfortunately sometimes can be also a source. And I'll elaborate a little bit on that as well. But they also represent a potential for climate-based solutions if we manage them sustainably. Some papers even say that about 25% maybe could be also the impact of these improvements. And then the UN CCD Convention to combat desertification, of course, has land and soil at the heart of the convention. And there are several initiatives like the land degradation neutrality or the economics of land degradation, which dip into on these interactions. Now, again, if you look at the Sustainable Development Goals, there are many aspects that are strongly related to the to soils. I don't want to mention only the SDG 15, life on land, but also the SDG 6, for example, on water, because there is a strong correlation between water and soil. We have the Global Soil Partnership, And there is also the European Soil Partnership, and I'm happy to mention that in the past we did had also the European Soil Bureau Network, which did fantastic work since many years before. It's a cut per mill initiative, which also came after the Paris Accord, and that is also an initiative which has, I would say, also a strong impact. And the most important thing is that we had also a workshop organized for this, the proposed EU mission, Caring for Soil, Caring for Life, in the area of soil health and food. And this is to bring the soil at that level. It's very amazing. And for me, as a soil scientist with many years in my career, I'm very happy to see that institutionally speaking, the interest is always increasing. Now, I should say that despite we say that soil formation and soil genesis, but I mean, I rather prefer to call soil as non-renewable because I'll come back to that, but it is a resource that is very crucial. And since this seminar is also strongly related to farmers, for example, but also to consumers and society, is that we need to understand that farmers also are businessmen, so they need to make a profit out of that, but keeping the soil healthy is also worth it. Consumers need healthy food, and society needs also good water, infrastructure facilities, biodiversity conservation. I mentioned climate change, and we'll come back to this when we'll discuss also the endless number of soil functions or services that the soil provides to us. Now, we also understand that investing in soil health is both short, medium, and long-term investment. Well, I mentioned that soil formation is a very long process. You can take 500 and maybe more years to build just 1 centimeter. And we can lose that very easily, after a very strong event of rainfall, for example, and the topsoil, which is the most fertile part of the soil profile, can be lost immediately. On the same time, the soil is also fragile, I would say. If you look at the soil components, you know that we have also air and water, but compaction can drastically reduce that in a very short period of time. So we have to be very careful in all the management aspects that we implement. And then finally, both agriculture and forest productivity depend on the healthy soils. I mean, one of the main functions that soil provide is the biomass production. And this can be supported only if we have healthy soils and we have good biodiversity on that, and then we can support all the productivity level that it should provide. Well, Madame Nathalie mentioned this, and I don't want to repeat again the importance that also the European Union is putting into the soil. It was mentioned the Green Deal. I highlighted some of the most relevant aspects in the Green Deal where the soil can play a major role. It's a part to fork, for example, it was mentioned that we have this objective to go up to 25% in organic farming, zero pollution from various sources, if you wish, from excess use of pesticides or fertilizers. So it's something to be done on that. And we'll hear a lot about this during these 2 days. We have a goal to make at least 75% of soil healthy or showing trends that soils are improving. We will have a panel and we will hear more about the European Joint Programme on Soil. The thematic strategy, by the way, is being revised. People are invited, I assumed, until 27th of April to give their opinions. We have a EU Soil Observatory, which was launched last year, and Arvin Jones will also tell more about that, as well as the European Soil Data Center, and we have a LUCA soil monitoring system. So institutionally speaking, things are put in place quite well. And why that? Because there is an urgency to act. The soil food and soil mission and food pointed out that there are many aspects that unfortunately are not so well in Europe, and that's why we need to act. 60 to 70%, for example, of the soils maybe are unhealthy, and mostly due to not sustainable management practices. We still have contaminated sites as a history of the industrialization of Europe, issues of eutrophication of soil and water, losing carbon still, and 24% of the land is maybe affected also by unsustainable water erosion. The European Court of Auditors a few years ago pointed out that also the desertification in South and Central and Eastern Europe is still a critical issue, and there are some estimates that this all costs 50 billion per year, soil degradation in the EU. So we have to do something, and in that regard, I would say that soils also, in terms of climate change, are a good remedy. What you see on the left side of the screen are all the bad things that we can do, from unsustainable soil management and compaction and many other things. But there is a good part of the story that on the right side, there are sustainable soil management practices that they do have an impact on improving the and enhancing soil health. I will be rather brief because again, you will hear a lot also during the breakout session about these practices that were implemented by the several focus groups of the EIP. There are publications coming out. If you want, you can read also this report that also looked at how the impact of the CAP on sustainable soil management. And there are all kind of outcomes of that report. Some of them are also positive, but also there is still things to be done. Well, I borrowed this slide, by the way, by my all-time colleague and friend, Luca Montanarella, but you can see here, for example, how management practices can impact soil conservation. You see on the upper part, you see the how the erosion can be related depending on the type of land use, from grasslands to intensive cultivations in conventional agriculture. And then on the lower part is what are the good things that we can do. Reducing tillage and then cover crops and then building stone walls on the terraces and so on. So there are many technologies and practices, some of them also traditional, that we can also implement to keep the soil healthy and maintain that for those that will come after us. So we try to bring into this seminar to give a voice to all the focus groups that were implemented during these years by the EIP. Of course, we couldn't have each and every one in a separate way, so we thought it's better probably that we cluster or we put under the theme. So we thought it was good to have soil productivity and nutrient cycling, the three groups and one seminar there. Then there is soil carbon sequestration and soil water interface. They are all interrelated and complementary and act also simultaneously. It's not that one stops and the other starts. So this is also something that we will keep in mind and we'll discuss during that. I'm coming to the end of my talk, and I've shown this slide also in some other occasions, and I know that some people may have seen it, but I think it is worth it to repeat it again, because if you look at this, I took this picture back in 2011 in Sardinia, in Italy, during a field survey that we were doing with my colleagues there, and you can see that this is the same soil, same slope, nothing changes in terms of physical, chemical, and biological properties. But there is the way that how we manage it that it can show. So if you look on the left side of the screen, I would say there is no degradation here. A few cows grazing happily, and the vegetation is there. Here, the farmer decided probably to plow up and down the slope, which you see some rills and maybe they are gullies now. If I have to go back, and on the right side, it's all degraded. There's no single grass there, overgrazed. Construction ongoing on this side. So it depends on how we manage the soil. It is very much important to think that this is we can keep the services unless we maintain and implement sustainable land and soil management. But we have to be careful also. There is not that there is a fit-for-all strategy that can works equally the same everywhere. It has to be locally tested and validated. And to do so, we have to put farmers at the center of this ecosystem when I started in the beginning. And there are so many technologies and terminologies that, in my view, they are more or less interrelated with each other. I'm not again repeating, but conservation agriculture is not that far from regenerative agriculture and the conservation village from conservation agriculture. So there are many aspects. And I have emphasized here the living labs and the lighthouses because these were also mentioned strongly into the mission report that what we could and what we know that it works, we have to make that aware and usable also for people who can implement and disseminate this type of technologies which are well positive and improve soil health. So I think for my introduction, that's okay. Thank you.
Nils, you're muted.
Thank you, Pandi, for this presentation. If you would like to stay a few seconds with us to see if we have some questions from the chat. Irira, you have been looking into the chat. Do you have anything that came out from the public and the participants to address to Pandi?
Yeah, we have a couple of questions. One of them is, how do we determine if the soil is healthy? Is there a guideline to measure the soil health?
Well,
Very shortly, Pandi.
Yeah, well, there are several manuals. There are we can collect soil samples. We can make. We have also field tests that can be done quickly into the ground, either counting, for example, the number of the earthworms or looking at the color, making a test whether the soil is acid or salty. So there are several techniques that can be done, but you need a good combination between field testing and also when it's not possible, then we collect samples and come out with. But there are several thresholds that have been already established.
Thank you. Another question, Iri?
There are a number of EU initiatives on soil. Is there a coordinating body or an overarching body for this?
Pandi.
Well, probably it's not my in my personal title to respond to that because you have also people from the commission. But yes, there is the EU Soil Observatory, for example. We'll discuss about that. There is a European Soil Data Center which collect and they have published several estimates of what is the status of erosion, of heavy metal contamination throughout Europe. So there are sources for doing that. Yes.
Yes, we're going to have some inputs later this morning from the different responses and initiatives that exist around this. Thank you. Another question, the last one maybe?
No, there are not.
Thank you. Anyway, you still can put your question on the chat. I just would like to remind that if you are interested, the PowerPoint that has been presented and all the others will be available shortly after the event, so you can reach out for them and use them or be referred to them. Thank you very much, Pandi, for this presentation. Thank you, Iri, to having looked into the chat. We would like now to look into some typical practitioners' examples. And we would like to welcome some invitees that we have with us this morning. If I may introduce you, we're going to have 4 presentations. I'm going to introduce you to these persons shortly. Sorry, I'm getting a bit confused. There is a bit, here we are. we're going to introduce you to Miss Patricia Mora McGinity. She is CEO in the Gestiona Ambiental, an environmental engineering company from Spain. Patricia, if you would agree to open your camera. Good morning, Patricia. Your camera is still closed. Maybe in the meantime, I can welcome also Miss Christine Bajohr. Good morning, Christine. You are a mountain farmer in the Allgäu in Bavaria, Germany, and you're a specialist in holistic management. And we have with us Geneviève Savigny. Good morning, Geneviève. You are a free-range chicken farmer in the Alps of southern France. Maybe you can also open your camera. That is possible. And finally, we have also Kaylee Magner, who is a pastured egg producer in Moyglass, Ireland. I hope I didn't mispronounce your name too badly. Hi. Sorry for that.
Good morning.
So thank you being all of you being with us this morning. Unfortunately, we still don't have the cameras of Patricia and Geneviève. Maybe in the meantime, I would ask, start with you, Kylie. What is actually the motivation why you invest in soil? That's why we invited you. And what are the challenges that you meet as a farmer in this topic of soil?
Well, I think the points that Pandi made, that soil is basically the basis for everything. So for us, it's really about our own environment. So increasing the profitability of our farm, through soil health. So I think that's very important for us. Because we do pastured egg production, our hens move across the pasture every day. So for us, it's really about increasing the nutritional value of the food that we produce. So by including ruminants, cattle, sheep, and goats into that mix, we feel that we're really building biodiversity and increasing the nutritional value of our end product. And I guess the other point that Pandi made was, farmers have to be financial. So for us, that's almost a unique selling point that we can say our products, and hopefully we're going to learn about measuring that nutrition through the soil health. But for us, that's a unique selling point that we can actually grab hold of. So apart from the environmental aspects, it's really an economic one as well.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. Do you see any connection to what Kylie just said, Christine? You are in a very different situation with mountain farming. What is your actual connection to this soil question?
Well, first of all, when we talk about soil health, we are actually acknowledging that the soil is a living system with living organisms. Otherwise, it couldn't be of good or bad health. Yet my understanding is that soil health is only possible in symbiosis with healthy plants. And both soil and plants need water and certain conditions to thrive, especially in a healthy community. So I would say that first and foremost, we are investing in a healthy system, which of course the soil is a very important part. And we need to do this because most grasslands, our land included, have been so poorly managed in recent decades or even centuries that we haven't seen the true potential of what an intact and interacting living system can do when managed according to nature's principles. In some areas of our land, we've already gotten first glimpses of what can be possible, quite impressive ones actually. So that's why we are very motivated to continue to improve our management, to see what else unfolds in the following years. But either way, the underlying motivation is that it's probably the only way for us to become more resilient to climate change and thus less dependent in general. And ultimately, I think this investment is our only chance to preserve our land and our planet for future generations. Last chance at all.
Last chance,
Yes.
indeed. Geneviève, can you hear us? Could you turn on your camera maybe again? Have a second try. Patricia, can you hear us? Apparently, we are facing a great technical challenge. In the meantime, to both of you, Kylie and Christine, if you look at your daily work, you have your own practice. Where do you get support from? What kind of aids do you get to go on in your research and your quests to better soils? And what kind of expertise can you call in for your quest for better soils? Christine?
Well, I know from our own.
Oh, Kaylee, go on, please.
Sorry, Christine. I think from our own perspective, it's very hard to find a specific advisory that is actually really on the same page as we are. So it's very hard to find somebody who's kind of slanted not towards chemical but biological farming. And I think for us, a lot of the research is really done on your own. You know, it's going onto the internet, listening to podcasts, watching YouTube videos, what other people are doing, attending conferences, networking with other innovators. And so far, I mean, I know the directives of the Farm to Fork, they're very good, and they're very, you know, brilliant for soil health, but actually implementing those ideas, I think a lot of it is actually, you know, led by yourself, by researching yourself. So it would be great to have something, a bank that you could actually go to and just withdraw all that information.
How is it for you, Christine?
Well, our project KUHproKLIMA was developed because the many research approaches and also the results are unfortunately both often disconnected from the needs of us practitioners. I think on-farm research in real collaboration with us farmers is necessary to address the real problems we have to face out there. And we need this knowledge processed in an understandable form, concretized to the respective level of our actions. So we can find out for ourselves what works on our farms and what doesn't make sense. So standard recipes just don't work everywhere. Nature is too complex for that. So consultants or experts are very important, but usually they are focused on a limited field, which is by their experts. What farmers who want to regenerate their farm need now, in my opinion, are more experienced generalists who can mentor a farmer through the transition over a longer period of time. And yeah, as for funding, yes, most of the time there is financial support needed for the transition to a more regenerative way. But many farmers are so caught up in their systems that they don't have room to move, let alone breathe or even think of anything new. So I think what they need first and foremost is a new vision, an understanding, and then a new doable plan for a transition adapted to their respective location and the needs of the people living there. We recognized this in our project right at the beginning. That's why this has resulted in a side project with participants outside the project, in which we are currently developing a concept that is intended to address precisely these problems.
Very interesting. We still don't have Geneviève or Patricia.
So hello, I'm back. With the
great.
computer, I was completely lost, so I'm back
No
with the
problem. You're welcome in.
telephone.
Very flexible and resilient. Thank you to joining us with the typically organic adaptation to change. Could you just shortly tell us what is your approach and what are your challenges facing this soil health in south of France?
Well, yes, it's very, very important issue. I want to make precise that but my companion has an arable farm, about 60 hectares of wheat and lavender, and also some fodder crops. He used to have sheep, but since now maybe, well, since 30 years now, he hasn't got any more sheep. So it's a mostly arable farm with some chicken. And we have realized that to have healthy food, it was important to have healthy production of wheat, especially, and that it was important for this to have an approach, a holistic approach of the farm, especially of the soil. But with dryland, well, the soil is not so bad, but it's very stony and slopey, and so we have limits to what we can do in terms of improving the soil quality. Do you want me to develop now, or?
I think we will have other opportunities go deeper. Maybe just a word, where do you get your support expertise from? How does it work in your situation? What is efficient for you as advisory, or where do you get your hints from?
Yes, yeah. Well, we have our own approach and all experience. I used to be a teacher at the very beginning of my career, and I would teach soils and analysis and so on, but it has changed a lot. And in practice, at that time, that's about 40 years ago, there were a lot of analysis of the soil and done by the Chamber of Agriculture, but now they are not tackling this issue so much, but different groups like the Association for Organic Farmer and another association for agroecology, and this is where it is possible to have more support. Although for the moment we are in a transition period. I think we've done for about, well, 30 years, as I said, with my companion. We've been, I would say, normal medium farmers in the mountainous area. And now with our son, who's going to take over, I think the transition to organic farming is going to be far more precise and effective. And we'll get more support from the organic association, I would say. Yeah. Where we find the most relevant support.
Maybe I take the opportunity. Nice to have you, Patricia. Was it difficult for you as well? You, I think I understand you're in a consultant organization. You act as an advisor. I hope you heard anyway the outspeak of Christine, Kylie, and Geneviève, the lack of support. What is your approach as a advisory organization, private, all the more, to support farmers in this challenge?
Well, thank you first of all for having me here. It was I was lost for a minute, so I had about 5 minutes there. But thanks to Andres and Theus for bringing me back to the panel. Okay, yes, we're an advisor, an environmental advisor. We work with in the south of Spain, and we are especially now interested in working with the limits really of livestock, extensive livestock, taking into account climate change adaptation systems. And I haven't actually managed to hear the panelists which have been talking before, but as you already explained, yes, definitely advisors is something which is mostly necessary, very much necessary for farmers. We are working very, very close to farmers, and we are learning so much about what's needed. And one of the things that we find in some of our projects is that the need for training is felt so much. We have this project in our project, a live project called LiveAdapt. We just recently released some, well, actually my partners over here, Pedro Mari, he's been working with the courses, and we expected to have, these are courses addressed to farmers for adaptation to climate change, specific good practices with soil, but also with water, pasture and cattle, obviously. And we expected to have about, I don't know, maybe 20, 25 farmers for each course, and we've having 80. And we haven't really done much of you know, we haven't really moved it around too much. So we obviously, there's such a need for good information flow and good, yeah, it's definitely a demand, and it's something which I'm so happy that we're working on over here in the EIP-AGRI. And obviously not only soils, but soils is definitely a very unknown sector sphere. It's something which is very unknown to the farmers usually. Well, maybe to everybody, but definitely to the farmers, which they need to work with. So I think it's there's loads to do, basically. There's loads to do, and I'm open to everything that's moving around over here today. So hopefully we'll be managing to talk soon, I hope.
Great, great. Thank you. I think we should move on. Thank you. We have a good glimpse into reality and how important this soil question is and the different challenges we have. I would like to give the opportunity to participants to bring in some questions together with Iri again. Iri, if you would like to join us and bring in some questions from the participants in the chat. Have you heard something or read something that can bring us?
Yep. Christine, question to Christine from Stefan. What is the difference between soil health, soil quality, and soil properties? Mostly people just use quite basic soil properties to measure soil health. So what is it really? What is it really?
Christine, do you have a fancy answer for that?
Well, I'm only a farmer. I don't divide soil into different properties or things. For me, soil is a living system now, and I treat soil now like I do treat my cows. And if they are thriving and healthy, everything else is good, and the structure is good, and they can do their work, and yeah, and it's the same thing with soil. It's always the same thing. So
thank you. To look at the problem as a whole,
yes,
as holistic says.
You have to.
Yeah, thank you. Another question, Edie?
There aren't much more questions at the moment, but I invite all participants to leave their questions still in chat and referring to which panelists they are addressed to, so they can be answered later as well.
Yeah, great. As you can see, it gives more interaction. Is there maybe a final word to this practitioners you would like to share? Geneviève, you're trying to say something additional?
Yes, in fact, it was difficult with technical problems, but we wanted to say that we had to allow more nature to grow in our fields with more grass growing, and so it brings more organic matter. But then the problem will be to control weeds. And for this, we've developed a way to hoe with lavender nearer to the stump, so with a special device that my husband made. And this is how we have to develop solutions really on the farm to be able to bring more life in the soil, to allow more life in the soil, but still having a crop and decent economic conditions. So it's a whole approach of growth and
innovation, of new approaches and new ideas to solve technical aspects. And
exactly. Sometimes it's a low-tech approach, but very efficient.
Great. We'll be very happy to have you all and all your experience together today. Maybe to go further now, I would like to give the opportunity to the whole floor, to have just a short moment to discuss. What do you understand? What did you take away? Have a short buzzing round, so we can also get active in our thoughts and discuss what we just heard. Same system as before, a small group. Maybe this time, just after introducing you very shortly, what struck you in what you just heard, and what new issue does it rise from your perspective? So a few minutes in a short buzzing round to be able to kind of chew on these questions and go further and deeper in this question among you and to know some new people. This is all random distribution, so be open to meet some new persons and use some new perspectives. Zeus, the floor is yours.
Hello, Teresa.
Hello, Nathalie.
Hello.
You are there. Where are you? Are there so many people? I cannot see all of you.
Yeah, I think there are many together. If you like to join each other, maybe use the chat or the private connection system of the virtual platform. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed this possibility to exchange, to go further and not to get too late. We are already very advanced in our program. I would like to go further now and to know what kind of answers that are available for these challenges that we have been looking at in this first presentation. Maybe as a first, I would like to welcome Ms. Teresa Pinto Correia from Portugal. She's geographer and professor at the University of Évora and vice chair of the Soil Health and Food Mission Board at Horizon Europe Soil Mission. Dona Teresa, the floor is yours. Kindly introduce the Soil Mission to us.
Yeah, thanks very much, Niels, and good morning, everyone. I think it's really interesting to be here today and really interesting how it is organized, that we get into these small rooms and get a bit of chat with the participants. It gets a bit less anonymous as these Zooms tend to be. So thank you very much for the organization. Yeah, I'm here to present the mission. I will be short. I think we don't have so much time. We should have more time, a bit of time for discussion. As Nathalie also already said in the beginning, we have been working in the Soil Health and Food Mission Board since September 2019. And we discussed a lot what the strategy should be about, what we should propose. And we also discussed within the mission board, we discussed with the assembly where a lot of other specialists are gathered, and also the representatives of the member states. So it's not only the proposal of the mission board, but it's also very much discussed and in a participated process. And finally, we reached this goal, which is an ambitious goal, but still we believe it's realistic if we really are able to change practices and to change the way things go. So our goal is that at least 75% of all soils in each member state will be healthy by 2030, or will be showing improvement for these indicators or these characteristics which are not healthy according to some thresholds which are defined. And this should be adapted to the region, to each regional context. So it's not that we cut directly across with the same criteria, but we have the same indicators, but the thresholds will be depending on the context. But when we define this goal, this ambitious goal, we were really looking at how can soils be improved, where they have been improved, what is the rate of improvement, and So we have data which support our specific objectives and the targets we have measured. So there is, for instance, as restoring 50% of degraded land, but it's not something we have just proposed because we believe it's important, but also because we believe it's possible if practices are changed. So the program of the mission proposes different dimensions of action, and the first one would be a research and innovation program, which is as interdisciplinary or even transdisciplinary as possible, looking at soils in a system perspective with a systemic perspective and acknowledging regional differentiation. We believe it's very important that we tackle the problems in which we are aware that the contexts are different. So this should be done. So there should be research going on in contact with the field on each different context. Then we proposed a system of 8 indicators, the same indicators, but the thresholds adapted to the region. So this here also, this should allow that there is a monitoring system which is consistent and we can compare how soil health is improving, but adapted to the context so that we are not asking for impossible improvements, but for the realistic ones. Then we have a very important stepping stone, which is the advisory services. And it has been mentioned in here that not all farmers have access to knowledge and not all farmers are followed in what they do. So we need to have a much better and well-structured advisory service, independent and following each producer, farmers or foresters or even urban planners or those who are managing the areas, soil on urban areas, they should also be supported. So this should be a relevant and important goal. Society should be engaged, of course, and so soil literacy should be improved and all members of society become more aware of what soil is about. And then these together, we should encourage changes in policies and day-to-day practices. So we really think there's a change in behavior which is needed and in practice. And for all these, and for completing all these in a more, in a different way, in a more innovative way, we propose a network of living labs and lighthouses. But I think the living labs will really be the key of the mission board, the soil mission board, which is built in a way that really researchers work together with farmers in real world farms and in clusters of farms which work together and exchange knowledge. So knowledge is not only produced by researchers, but researchers together with those who are going to use it. And these living labs will be really something which we are hoping we can start very soon in different regions of Europe and really starting this dialogue so that also the society in the regional level can be aware of what's going on. So I would just like to end by saying how the mission is contributing to the changes needed. I think mainly it's looking not only at soils, but at the drivers of soil health. So looking at people and people behavior. So how can we change, how can we create the social innovation required for farmers to change their practices, to go out of their past dependency in their behavior and adapt soil health practices. So this is really very important, and some of the other speakers have talked about it. I think when we hear the farmers which have talked also here in this session, we understand how their role as persons is important. So this is one of the founding blocks of the mission, and it will be tested or to be set to place with the living labs, but generally paying more attention to people and their practices. It's very much in the center of the mission. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So the important role of people and persons, the question of soil is in the center of your mission. Thank you very much. I would like now to welcome Madame Claire Chenu. If you would like to open your video and camera. Thank you. Welcome today to us. Madame Chenu is research director at INRAE in the French agronomic research centers and the consulting professor at AgroParisTech. You are involved in the JRC, if I pronounce it.
No.
TRC.
No.
Yeah,
I'm involved in the AJP.
AJP, sorry, I mix up my notes. So could you explain to us what is the interaction of this structure in the whole question of soil health in the European network.
Okay, well, thank you. Good morning to everyone, and thank you for inviting us through me. And I really also appreciate the interactive character of this meeting. So I am representing here the European Joint Program Soil, which I'm coordinating. This program has started 1 year ago in February 2020. It is a 5-year research program that is fairly peculiar because it is co-funded on the one hand by 24 European countries who mandated 26 research institutes, and on the other hand, co-funded by the EU Commission. So the AJP Soil is entitled Towards Climate Smart Sustainable Management of Agricultural Soils. So you see the scope is agricultural soils. Well, you know what is sustainable soil management. It was defined by FAO. It is the management that ensures that agricultural soils are able to deliver services, supporting, provisioning, regulating cultural services. Clearly, that soils remain multifunctional. And we added the prescript climate smart because of the importance of adaptation to climate change and mitigation of climate change and the role soils can have and agroecosystems can have. So soils is clearly, well, our object of research. And what we did so far is that we elaborated a roadmap for our program for agricultural soil research after a wide consultation exercise. We had nearly 1,000 stakeholders and scientists consulted. What we do is that we develop knowledge by organizing calls and performing research projects. We share and transfer knowledge through training and capacity building, well, essentially for young scientists, but I think it's not enough, and through dissemination. We also harmonize and organize knowledge. We have a very big activity regarding the harmonization of soil information and the ability to transfer soil information across Europe. And regarding knowledge application, we aim to deliver knowledge base for policy and develop a science to policy interface. We aim to widely channel the developed knowledge, and maybe I'll come back to that, and develop research projects in collaboration with farmers. And for that, the concept of living labs is extremely interesting for us. And in our current call, we are proposing scientists to base their research on living labs, to be able to co-construct research with farmers. And in fact, I think as our program is a research program performed by scientists, by construction administratively, is that we really would like to develop collaboration with EIP-AGRI. I think it's really necessary for us because farmers are the ones implementing the changes and they are the ones involved.
Thank you very much. That is a very challenging and project that you are carrying. And I would like now to welcome Mr. Arwin Jones. I hope I don't mispronounce your name. Good morning, Mr. Arwin Jones. And if I'm right now, I can see it. You are in charge of the JRC project or proposal. Could you explain what it is about and how this articulates with the other proposal and response and initiatives that are happening in Europe?
Yeah. Indeed. So I work for the Joint Research Center of the European Commission. So it's like the sort of in-house science component of the European Commission. And specifically, our task is to support the development of policies that have a soil component to them. And we've seen very recently that some very exciting developments under the Green Deal, the different strategies. Here this morning, we've been talking predominantly about the agricultural sector, under the Farm to Fork and the Common Agricultural Policy, but also under the biodiversity strategy, under the circular economy action plan, and specifically also under the zero pollution action plan as well. Soil is really having a perception of being the glue that brings all these policies together. And the objective of the European Union Soil Observatory, which has been established by the JRC at the end of last year, is to be able to provide the policymakers with robust evidence to underpin these policies, both in terms of their formulation, but also in the assessing the implementation and the effectiveness of the various instruments that are used to carry out these policies in meeting the targets. And the mission, Soil Health and Food Mission, has actually proposed a set of, I would describe them as aspirational targets, and also a roadmap towards implementing measures to achieve these targets, which I think in many cases are readily achievable in the time frame. So one of the key elements that I would like to maybe to use a few minutes now is to just simply highlight the need for real effective and integrated soil monitoring campaign soil monitoring program rather for the EU, and that's where we're collaborating very closely with EJP Soil, because here we have the institutions that are involved in national programs. And many of you may know that for the European Union, we have the Lucas soil program that tries to provide a sort of an umbrella coverage. But on itself, I don't think it's sufficient, and therefore we need to have much closer activities with those systems operating in member states, and also to try and stimulate those, the majority of countries actually that don't at the moment have an operational soil monitoring system to begin to invest. And actually there's a lot of discussion about the cost of soil sampling and soil monitoring. But if you look at a broader perspectives in terms of the investment that's been carried out in terms of water sampling or air quality sampling across Europe, the effort for soil is actually very, very low in comparison. And actually, it's probably very effective and good value for money to get the investment in collecting data on soil health and condition. So I think that's, I'm aware of time, but I think that's the big message from our side is to be able to assess the changes and progress towards indicators.
Great, thank you very much. And finally, I would like to, hopefully we can reach him, welcome Mr. Sebastian Jensen. I think you are involved in implementing a nitrate directive in the Flanders in Belgium. Can you tell us how your activity articulates with all these initiatives we heard, and also making the connection to the farmers in your situation? Sebastian, if you still can hear us, I think there is a small connection problem. I hope our super god in technology, Dr. Zeus, can fix it. Maybe in the meantime, I heard to all three of you this very high level, if I may say, thoughts about soil strategies throughout Europe. And we heard just before the farmers' preoccupation on field. I kind of, yeah, you have different thing. Oh, Sebastian, you're back.
Yes.
Did you get my question?
You can hear me.
Yes.
Okay, I'm happy.
We're happy to have you with us. Could you tell us shortly about your implementation of the nitrate directive in the Flanders, and how you articulated with the overall context and the farmers' needs?
Good morning. Thank you for giving me the floor to present our new initiative in Belgium, in Flanders, about advising and accompanying farmers to better nutrient and soil management. That new initiative has just started last January. The initiative has been given the name B3W. that is an abbreviation for the Dutch words meaning accompaniment to better soil and water quality. Indeed, besides the measures laid down in the manual action plans in the framework of the Nitrates Directive, we have made in Flanders the clear choice to invest in the next 4 years in farmers' support to sensitize them on better practices and techniques to prevent nutrient losses to air and water. Sensitizing and raising awareness about these issues are very important, but the real goal of our initiative is the implementation by the farmers on their own individual forms of better techniques and practices. I have been talking you about the Nitrates Directive and the Flemish action plans to implement the Nitrates Directive, but what is now the link with soil health or soil quality? We want to put forward that a good soil is really necessary for a higher nutrient efficiency, and so for less losses to water and air. I'm quite sure a good soil is not the only solution for lower losses of phosphorus and nitrogen in water, but it is definitely one basis of good nutrient management. Key element in our approach is the central position of farmers. Farmers are seen as actors in the intended adjustments of practices, and interaction between the farmers is aimed at enhancing the crucial peer-to-peer exchange and learning, leading the farmers at evaluating their current techniques and practices and adapting them where necessary. Interaction and peer-to-peer learning should also allow the search for new approaches for better practices, for better soil quality, less nutrient losses. That is why the weight of our approach lays on thematic exchanges and focus groups, where the farmer is really the actor in the center of the whole story. Talking about new approaches is important, but again, the final aim we pursue is the adoption of the good farming practices on the individual farms. So another emphasis of our initiative is communication, a broad and targeted communication on issues of soil and nutrient management, but more important on the practical solutions for better soil and less losses. We definitely need to have an hands-on approach. We have to work in the perspective of a farmer. It is the farmer that has to do better to change his practices. Just really, we have to deliver understandable and very practical information to the farmers. And the content of that information, the content of that communication must be fed by the important facts, findings, results of the thematic exchanges and focus groups. And also the communication must include tips and tricks coming from the forward-thinking farmer to help to stimulate other colleagues to adopt better practices in the future. So as I have said, we have just started our initiative early January, so we are in full development for the moment, but we have already started our first events on the field in March.
We look forward to know more about the progress of your project. Maybe we will have the opportunity further on. Sorry to speed up a bit. We have to keep on track for the timing. I would like to invite to the floor Professor Pandi Zdruli, who has been looking into the chat. I think this was organized.
Thank you, Niels.
You join us and open your camera.
Oh, my camera is open already.
Okay, I think it will take some seconds until it is activated.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. We haven't been, you have been looking into the chat and the questions that came up. Would you please
yes.
address those questions to our panelists?
Okay. Well, it's for Teresa. I mean, you mentioned that there are 8 indicators that have been identified for soil monitoring. Now the question comes, for example, which parameters should we measure in short and in long term? And that goes a little bit more closer with another question that is related to you, Teresa, but also to the other speakers. Are there any thresholds that tells a farmer that, listen, your soil now became unhealthy because of that? It was healthy and became unhealthy, or vice versa. It was unhealthy, but since you managed it correctly, it became healthy. So this type of indicators, is it possible to give some tips to a farmer, for example, or land user?
Teresa, it was addressed to you first and maybe others afterwards.
Yes, please, anyone.
Yeah, I think the 8 indicators, they are published in our report. The most important, I think I would like to say in this context here is that we have not developed yet in detail what should be the thresholds for the different regions. But the goal is that we have a common approach to what needs to be measured, but then adapted to the regional context together with researchers and the local authorities or the regional authorities in the region and farmers. So this work still needs to be done. It's how you can in each region make it more useful for farmers so that they can have an indication of where is it going. So the 8 indicators, it was more an effort to say, well, we need to have a consistent set of indicators so that we know what we are measuring and we can compare across member states what's going on, whether it's going in the good sense or not. So we have changed. Yeah, sorry.
So it's work in process.
Not take too long, but it's more that this contextualization still needs to be done.
Yes, I'd like to also to give the floor to Claire, because I'm sure that also the EJP has this as research targets at least.
Yes, thank you, Pandi. Yes, the EJP is pretty much interested and involved in that. And actually what we are doing is that we are stock taking, because the EJP is really a collective effort of 24 countries. So what we are doing is that we are stocking what is out there. What are the indicators actually used, actually measured? What are the thresholds actually really identified? And it's important to know that the thresholds, of course, will be context first, that within the 8 categories of indicators defined by the Soil Mission. So far, we have identified that countries and companies are using different parameters to assess to those categories of indicators, and that the thresholds, of course, they are context dependent. Soil type, climate, production system, but they might also be different whether you prioritize a given soil function or another one. So, and so what we are doing is that we are stocking what is out there, and after we will have a research project to develop, to propose thresholds and to develop how can we map, how can we model soil functions based on those indicators. So I think, yes, it's a really important question to have indicators of progress. This will allow farmers, local authorities, countries to monitor the progress. And it's really important, and also as said Arwin, that countries that do not have at present a monitoring system try to implement one, or try to collaborate more with Lucas to have a monitoring of their soil characteristics.
Thank you. And actually, I see that also we have a comment also from Christine. She's a farmer, and she says that we are doing everything for the moment with our own money. So for a living lab and the lighthouses, they also need certainly support. And we always said this, that the living labs are the place where the researchers, farmers, advisors all come together, but we can't leave the farmers just by themselves to invest on that. So I assume, Teresa, also the mission has this as a priority in terms, because we know the importance of living labs and the lighthouses, but in providing direct support to farmers, that should be also a priority.
Yeah. But I mean, if I understood your question, it was about whether there should be support for the living labs, and there is. This is the plan, that there will be a program for, calls will be open, and partnerships, different partnerships can apply to build living labs in the different regions. But the living labs, as the proposal is now, will be clusters of farms and not single farms. That will be supporting for the network, really, for an exchange which will involve different types of stakeholders. But something which also should be paid attention to is that these living labs should collect also support from different organizations, if possible, at the regional level, or other types of projects. So it's not just, one living lab starting and having and financing and then finishing when the financing is over, but it should be a continuity with some regional or local bodies, authorities, which take over and become responsible for the living lab. And as for the farmers themselves, they will be supported if they are part of the living lab in that framework, of course.
Yes, and that goes along also with another comment that was made, or question, that the living labs and the future operational groups of EIP-AGRI, I don't know when the next period will be, on a connection between the living labs and the soil health issues. So as a follow-up of all these previous are not, Nils, are we in time? Or
well, I think we should unfortunately you have to stop here the discussion. We are getting late. I would like all of you to thank you warmly for being with us, and I hope you can continue to be with us to contribute to the discussions throughout the day, today and tomorrow. I think it's important to bring in your perspective. I think we're going to go out now for a coffee break. I think it's important also in this concentration on the screen to get other perspectives, to get up and move a bit and open the window and drink something, or else we're gonna be very tired at the end of the day. So I get from the back office information. We shall have a coffee break now for 15 minutes. We will come back all together in the plenary session at 11:10. Please to be sure that to come back into the plenary room. There are many other rooms that we will use afterwards. There are the breakout session, and after the break, I'll introduce you to the breakout session, how we work together, and we're going to have the rest of the morning in getting deeper in this knowledge, the knowledge of and practice of these questions. Enjoy your break and come back fresh, full of energy, so we can continue to work actively. Thank you for your participation and active involvement to all of you.
Thank you.
Welcome back. I hope you all had the opportunity to refresh. I still have some problems with the image. I'm sure it's going to be solved. In the meantime, I hope you enjoyed your coffee break and you could get some fresh air and fill up with energy. We are out for a breakout session, and I'm going to shortly introduce you how this is going to work. And I first give the floor to Wilhelmine, who is going to screen us with the question of focus groups in the European EIP system. Wilhelmine, would you like to open your screen and your microphone?
My microphone is on and normally my screen should be on.
Yeah, it's on now.
Yeah.
The floor is yours, Wilhelmina.
Thank you very much, Niels. Ina, do we have the slide? Great, thank you. So just as Niels said, a very brief introduction for those of you who are not so familiar with EIP-AGRI focus groups. We will be discussing their results. The results, we've had around 43 focus groups in total. And these are groups of 20 people, experts from practice, farmers, foresters, advisors, and also researchers, people from NGO or agribusiness. They're selected through open calls. They address a very focused question, and they meet twice. They have several outputs, including ideas for innovative projects, such as operational groups, and also research needs from practice. And you can find all the information on the EIP-AGRI focus groups on the EIP-AGRI website. And the arrows point to 2 of the, I think we have 8 in total focus groups dealing with soil-related issues such as carbon storage in arable farming and fertilizer efficiency. And there are several more which we will be covering in the breakouts. So these focus groups come up with ideas for innovative projects such as operational groups. They're not the same as an operational group. And I think with that, I hope I've adequately introduced the focus groups. Please feel free to go to the website for more information on those. Niels, back to you. I think you're still muted, Niels. And there was a quick question, Niels, while I'm still
go on.
To speak. There is actually a link to the help desk, so it might be good to show that to people. Where
now, would you shortly open the virtual platform so we can show people where the help desk is? So you can see at the bottom left of the tools you have on the left, you have a help desk. You have different possibilities. There is a manual. There is a contact. You can directly contact Zeus Gonzalez. And you can contact by email, and there is a technical manual with different indications. So feel free to use that. If you want to click him, send him a message in the chat, you can address him a message directly. He's very professional and proficient in using the different tools, so feel free to address him your questions. Good. We should continue with the presentation of what is actually this first breakout session being about. I think we have Pandi is going to share with us, sorry, I'm mixing up. There's technical problems, difficult to keep focused. Shortly explain how we're going to work in this breakout session. Ina, if you would like to share this screen with the presentation. So as you saw in the program, we're going to have 3 breakout sessions throughout the day. The first breakout session is going to be dedicated to soil productivity and nutrient cycling. We are going to work in 3 different subgroups. You have indicated your preference when you registered. And so we invite you to go into the breakout session you preferred. There are 3 different breakout sessions you can choose in the app. You can see on beneath the plenary session with the orange color code. Be sure that you go in the right room because you might mix up otherwise. The way we are going to work in these breakout sessions, you're going to have a first introduction about the focus group topic that is going to be addressed with an illustration with a relevant study case. And then you are going to work in 5 subgroups. So we will have plenty of time to discuss different questions, which the host of the breakout room will explain to you. And the objective is at the end of this breakout session, you will collect possible projects, how you could go further, deeper in this specific questions you have been discussing. And the similar way to work is going to be repeated throughout the day. So this first one is a bit longer to get used to it, and the afternoon it might be a bit shorter because you get used to it. Now I would like to shortly invite Pandi to open the camera and microphone, so you can shortly tell us how we made this cluster and what is actually the sense you give to this specific cluster.
Okay, well, I think my camera and video are
is on. It's okay.
I'll be very brief because we have to listen to the idea was that there were these various focus groups that were explained by Wilhelmine that dealing with soil. So we decided to cluster or to put them under themes. And the first one was soil productivity and nutrient cycling. So without much details, because you will hear when you go into in the breakout sessions, a soil to be productive and a crop farming system to be productive, you have to have a good combination between what are the soil properties, soil qualities, and how, for example, you introduce a nutrient system, providing the right amount of nutrients at the right time for the crop. The other thing was that there are some soil-borne diseases. We soil scientists do not like to blame that much soils that are the source of the disease, but actually these are also happening. So you will hear as well how they are trying to manage when these type of problems come along. And then there is the cropping for the future, this workshop that try to identify some of the techniques and practices that can be implemented in order to enhance and to improve soil health. So that was the idea of clustering the first parallel session for the soil productivity and nutrient cycle.
Thank you very much. So with this additional indication, maybe you could shortly show again the slide with the breakout session so people can know where they have to go to. Ina? So you go in the application in the rooms, and there you see at the top left the plenary room where we were now, until now. We now ask you to choose the different rooms you want to go in, to click on it, and then you have to open a new Zoom session and you will be able to join. On the bottom of the Zoom session, you can see different informations you can have. There is the fact sheets for the different topics of the EIP. There is a link to a collaborative tool that you will be able to use during your working session and where you can fill in your contribution. The host of the breakout session will give you more indication about how to use these tools. So we try to be as efficient as possible. Hopefully you get along with this system and enjoy your breakout session. I hope you have interesting and fruitful discussions. And I'm looking forward to meet you again after lunch because we won't see each other anymore before. À plus tard. See you later. Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you enjoyed your meal and you were able to restock your energy reservoir. I see that we are a bit less participant than this morning. Maybe there's still some coming in. In the meantime, I suggest that we give the floor to Margarida to help us to get up to speed again and to get back into work. Margarida.
Yes, Niels. Thank you very much.
The floor is yours.
Yes, it's a challenge we have for you all. So first of all, we need you to go to gallery view, so not speaker's view, so that you can see everybody. So did you already do this? Okay, so now the challenge is the following. We will draw with our hands or arms the word soil, one letter at a time and simultaneously. So let's do it all together. First letter, do the S, is the most difficult one. So how do you do a S? Like this? Okay, very different solutions. Nice to see. Great, great. Now the O. O is easier. Yes. Great. Now the I. Yes, great. And now the L. Ooh. Yeah, well done, everybody. Thank you very much. Niels, back to you.
Thank you, Margarida, for this brilliant intermezzo. So I see people are coming in. We are about to start again. Maybe before we start and to connect to the morning, I think it's always important to have make connections. I would be very keen to have one or two, maybe three insights of this morning discussion from part of participant. Is there something that somebody would like to share? What was really amazing, or maybe also something that was completely frustrating this morning that she or he would like to share? Just a few words and say, tell us a bit about your enthusiasm or your difficulty to join this dynamic. Just open your microphone and speak out if you like, very spontaneously. Where do you stand? What was it this morning about? It's difficult, huh, to speak in front of so many people.
Well, it's not really a problem. Let's say more often, a bit shorter and easier maybe next time.
Sorry, I didn't get you. More often?
We should do this more often, shorter and easier.
Okay, so the more often to meet together and shorter events and easier to function. Thank you, Antonio.
Can I say
yes,
something?
Yes, please, Claudia.
Okay, so I have already received some phone calls from Portuguese farmers and they have a concern, which I do as well. Maybe we should think of how the EIP-AGRI organization could promote the creation of consortia, including farmers. This is very important to include the stakeholders in the proposals, and we have Horizon Europe on the table right now. So how can the organization help people to get together and create consortia to apply for these big projects, for Horizon Europe projects, for example? Because I am involved in H2020s and all sorts of projects, Interreg, whatever. And usually it's not easy to have the collaboration of the stakeholders on one side, because they are not fully funded. They only have either 50% or 70% funding, which is sometimes not very good for them. And because what's asked from them in terms of bureaucratical load is quite heavy.
Yeah. Let's not go too much in details. We heard
yes, but it is very important
integrate
to have
more
them.
farmers and to
Yes.
give them bridges to come. Thank
But
you very
it's
much.
very important to have them on board. And I think the EIP could really give a hand on that.
Thank you very much. Yes, I see that there is already interaction and people are moved. This is a very good sign. Thanks to both of you who have spoken out your observations. I think it's a strong signal that we take along. So for the next step, we're going to go out in a second breakout session. Ina, if you could give the floor to Pandi and myself. So the breakout session 2 is about the big question about, regarding carbon sequestration in soils. Pandi, could you explain us how these 3 topics we have together are related and what exactly the focus group did address?
Yes, of course. Well, who doesn't speak about carbon sequestration nowadays? Everybody. It is the most common topic. A lot of research projects as well ongoing on this, including the EJP soil. The idea here was that, let's take the Mediterranean regions, for example. We know that the organic carbon content or soil organic matter content in Mediterranean soil is rather low due to climatic conditions, high mineralization rates. We even wrote a paper a long time ago that 75% of the Mediterranean soil, so the Mediterranean, I'm talking European part, have less than 1% of soil organic matter. So there needs to be done something like that. And to do so, at least, we have to manage well the grazing. It's a combined grazing that can also feed the animals for sure, but also improve the soil organic matter content. So finding a good connection of that. I showed you a picture in my talk this morning that just a fence made such a big difference between overgrazing and controlled grazing. And then carbon storage in arable farming. So farmers also do need to produce. We always said farmers also need to make a profit. They are also business people. But on the other side, if you look at a more sustainable way of doing farming, then you can increase yields by in the same time increasing carbon into the soil. So these are more or less the ideas that came to our mind when we considered creating this cluster. But you will hear a lot more during the discussion. I don't want to go into much detail.
Thank you, Pandi, for this introduction. So we would like to guide you once more how to find this room. So each of you has the choice to join one of these 3 different topics in the different breakout sessions that we're going to offer you. Ina, if you would like to share once again the scheme. So we're going to work with the same process, presenting the focus group that you are working in, related case study, and then discussion in subgroups, and collecting projects at the end. And to find your subgroup, your breakout session, you can go into your virtual platform, click on rooms, and now we are in the green session. So scroll down, look at the time, 1:30 to 3 p.m., and you have the 3 topics. You choose your topic and you can join the Zoom session, which is going to deal with it. And again, you will have below this session, the different documents you will be using, the Google Doc, you are now used to it, and a specific EIP-AGRI fact sheet about the topic you are going to discuss. For all the discussions you would like to have among yourselves, use the chat on the right side, where you can directly get in conversation with your breakout session peers. I hope you will find the breakout session for this time. It is important that we are quite efficient in this process, because you noticed last time the time is short. So if it's possible for you, get directly to the breakout session so the groups can start working. I wish you all a brilliant discussion, fruitful work. I'm eager to see what happens in your groups. And in case of problems, remember Zeus Gonzalez is still there to support you in case of problems. Zeus, would you, yeah, now everybody is responsible and gets out of the plenary room and meets in a breakout session. Enjoy your afternoon. See you after the break.